So working on the main, if you look at the diagram, you can see that there's a lot of striations in it. And in my finished one, I did it on the top as well as on the sides. But if I can zoom that in, notice that I didn't go right down to the back of his neck with that. And that was on purpose, because in order to do that, you would have to come down from the top with a V tool, and when you did, it would dig into the back of his neck, and then you would have to clean up the back of his neck, and that would go deeper, so you'd still get that little ridge in there. Okay, so keep that in mind when you go to do that. So the next thing you have to decide is how wide you want it to be. And in the picture that Marilyn had, you can see that it looked like it was fairly narrow, and particularly more to the top. So maybe this one here, this rough out here, it could be a little bit thinner. So I think I would do that. I would thin it down and certainly make sure that it's in the middle. All right, make sure that you don't have more material moved off of one side than the other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to thin it down a little bit, use a V tool, and then I'm going to clean off the outside and get rid of my pencil or my pen marks there. So there's mine, narrowed down and cleaned up all the way down. Now in order to make the hair, you could try, I guess, to come this way, but you'd be prying with your V tool all the time. But how I do it is I simply line it up, and you see that? Yeah. So I line it up and I come down like that. And so it looks wider at the top and narrower at the bottom. And that gives the effect of hair. So just whatever spacing you want on that, you can do that, and it goes all the way up. Just try not to hit the back of the neck, otherwise you get all those little jagged marks in there to try and clean up. But you see there's no time at all, and you get one side done. And see how fast that goes. Alright, so that's done on both sides, and then I address the top. So you can see the effect there on both sides. Now we got a dress going across, and so that's just simply a question of taking the V tool and just hook up into the one or two of those notches that are at the top, and just continue it across. I go just past halfway, so that then when you go back and do the other side, it looks a little bit uneven. So it gives it that kind of effect coming down. So previously we addressed the tuft of hair that's hanging over his forehead, and that goes up into between his ears, and the motion is hanging down, okay, coming this way. So now on the back, of course, the mane is up and down the other way. So we've got to get a transition between in this area here, from the middle of the ears down. So gradually change the direction from a crossways motion and move it up, and just use short little strokes to get that done. And again, I just use a V tool, the smaller V tool. Let me kind of draw your attention to a problem a lot of carvers have, and it's difficult to get around it sometimes, but as you come down the body, or the neck here, and come up on the body, there is a transition point right in this area here, where the grain is wrong no matter which way you go. So you can come down and you can come up, but then you get to that point where you can't go anywhere. And you see, you get that little notch that's in there? And so the trick to that is to come across the grain. Take a gouge that's fairly flat or whatever shape it is, and as soon as you come across the grain, you remove that piece, and now you can work to that hollow both up and down. And that's true anywhere on the body. Okay? So there it is, more or less finished at the top here. I just made some striations in there so that there's a movement, if you will, between the ears coming down, getting the cuts coming this way, and then of course the mane is across, up and down. Okay, so we'll work on the tail now. The picture that Marilyn brought in shows that it's quite a thin, nearly a rope-sized tail, and then at the end he's got a big fly swatter. So obviously by that we've got way too much material through here. But what I'd like to see it do is I'd like to see it come out of his backside and then come down and go across, so we can get rid of this material on top and see where I'm going with the shape here, so that then we can take a little bit off of the bottom here too. So it'll be wider where it comes out of his backside, then go down skinny, and then at the end you can have that whatever shape you want. You could have it turned up if you wanted it turned up and have it wider here, or you could have it turned down or wrapped around or whatever. But try and keep it fairly thin, and then I'll make this wider like that, so that this area in here is going to be his fly swatter end. Alright, so I'm going to just remove all this material on the top, and just be careful, it'll be sitting there proud, ready to be broke off. Okay, so there it is. There it is, thinned down one way, and I left the big thing at the end here. So I'll likely take a little bit out underneath here, so that'll make that fly swatter look bigger. But look what's happened now when you look at it this way. We've got way too much material. So I've got to narrow all that down to match the width going the other way. So I've got to take that down, and once again I'm going to leave the end bulbous, or a lot of material in there, so that we can take it off. So I'm going to come back in here, and I'm going to take off a bunch of material coming in there. So what I did was I set up the idea for the frill, or the end of the fly swatter at the end of the tail. So with mine, I cut it straight across. As you can see, it's straight across. Made it more like a trumpet end, a horn end, so that it's tapered back towards it joins onto the main body. So then I'll just give it some striations there with the V-tool, and then dimple the end of it as if it looks like there's hair. It's got the bulk there of the hair at the end. So it's just how you do the end is you take a V-tool and you put it in and you flip it out. Put it in, flip it out. Turn it, go crossways. You get different designs just by putting the V-tool in and giving it a little bit of a flip. That's all there is to it. So we'll go ahead and do that. So it doesn't have to be much, just enough to indicate that there's hair there. You can go over it 2 or 3 times with a couple of different size gouges or V-tools, and that gives you the different textures involved. Or it can be all done with one tool, and it makes it look like it's all the same size hair. Okay? For those who are watching out in Never Land, we were going to do this for the spring project. This is just one design, but we're going to do several different designs, but it's a shelf holder. Marv Kaiserstadt has plans out, but we've got this out of a variety of different books and just made them fit to work as shelf holders. So this is an advertisement for anybody who wants to join the class. Okay, let's start doing a little bit of cleanup. This is where a very sharp knife comes in. You make sure your knife is sharp. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, say on this foot here, and I'm going to put a stop cut in all the way around here with the knife. Try and get a nice clean edge so that I can work the hoof up to it, and then from there I'll take a V-tool and I'll just work my way up on that. Did I show that before? No?
You're talking about the bed locks?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that
We didn't do the back.
so the same thing applies.
I didn't do the back.
Okay. Same thing applies for the back, and you can see if I zoom in here a little bit. Okay. You see on the back here, get the hoof the way you want it, the shape you want it, put a nice stop cut in around there, and then taper the material behind that so that it's relatively thin but enough thickness to it that you can give the put your V-tool in there and give it a bit of cleanup. So we'll do that, and then I'll come back and we'll start giving some final details. Okay, so now I've got the hoof cleaned up, and then I took my my knife and a V-tool, and I went in and I cleaned out the area in here. You need to create a shadow so you get a separation between the belly and the foot, and then the hip comes up and goes around. So you've got to create the idea or the shadow in, you see that, in this area here. So you come in with a sharp point of your knife, 5-degree angle. It doesn't have to be very much of an angle, so that you get that, see that little shadow that's created in there? Yeah, there. See the shadow that's created in here? So you get just the slightest little cut in there creates that shadow, and then gives you the separation of the hip from the body. And I wouldn't come past any more than about halfway towards the back, and no further back than that, because at some point the skin and the hip comes together with the side of the body. So that's just a question of cleaning up. So clean it up there. The other place to clean it up is where the tail is. So the tail, once you're satisfied with the shape of the tail, now the tail has to be rounded around. So it has to come around and into the body. So if I can keep that in the camera. So I'm going to put a stop cut in here, and I'm going to very gently go over it a couple of times, and you'll see shortly how. So now I come back in with on a bit of an angle with the knife, so that piece can come out hopefully. So you can see the size of that is very small, but look at the shadow it creates. So that creates the division then between the tail and the back of the bum, his body. So you see the difference there as opposed to over here. You get the idea that your eye will see that going around, and it completes the side of the tail that is against the body. So that's done all the way around. So that can apply to the other hip, this area in here on the other side of the body, and any place where you've got a sharp division between one part of the body and the other.